Hello, and welcome to Horns of Dilemma, the podcast of the Texas National Security Review, TNSR. I'm Doyle Hodges, Executive Editor of TNSR. In this episode of Horns, Will Inboden, Executive Director of the Clements Center at the University of Texas, Austin, and Dr. Jim Golby, a Senior Fellow at the Clements Center, sit down with Ambassador Bailey Hutchison, a former U.S. Senator and most recently U.S. Ambassador to NATO. They discuss NATO's future, the challenges that confront NATO now, as well as the development of a new strategic concept likely to be developed and unveiled as part of the upcoming NATO summit in June. The conversation covers many of the challenges associated with NATO expansion and changes in the types of security threats faced by NATO. Let's listen in.
Hello, and welcome to our latest episode of Horns of a Dilemma. I'm Will Inboden, Executive Director of the Clements Center for National Security here at the University of Texas at Austin, your host for today, and honored to have two very special guests, Dr. Jim Golby and Ambassador Bailey Hutchison. Very brief introductions to both. Ambassador Hutchison had a very distinguished career in the United States Senate, including service on the Senate Armed Services Committee, and then she most recently served as the U.S. Ambassador to NATO. Of course, for our Texas purposes here, her most important qualification is she's a proud Texas alum and the former president of the Texas Exit. So, Ambassador, it's great to have you back on campus here at the 40 Acres. And then Dr. Golby is a senior fellow here with the Clements Center, distinguished 20-year career with the U.S. Army, teaches civil mil relations and international security in the government department and at the LBJ School. And again, for our purposes, he was also a defense policy advisor at the U.S. mission to NATO, serving under Ambassador Hutchison. So great to have you both. And Jim is going to be leading our discussion with Ambassador Hutchison. So Jim, over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Will. So it's fantastic to be able to see you again in person. It's so nice to actually be in a position where we have a little more face-to-face interaction again. I've heard you many times talk about your perspective on NATO, not just as the ambassador, but going back to your career in the Senate. And throughout NATO's history, we've had all these debates about the relevance of NATO. We particularly saw this spike up at the end of the Cold War. But over the last 3 or 4 years during your time at NATO was another great time of controversy. So I'll just kick off by asking, in your view, both from your history in the Senate and your history in Brussels, why is NATO still relevant and important for U.S. security today?
Well, thank you, Jim. And let me say, I'm so pleased that you had the experience at NATO, along with being an advisor, security advisor to the vice president. And you have lent so much. And on a personal note, Jim and I traipsed through Afghanistan together. So you've had real world experience. And I'm really pleased that you're here at the University of Texas, because I think security and the importance of security combined with international here at the University of Texas is so important. On NATO, it is essential that we have an alliance of Western democracies and freedom-loving people, because the threats that we face globally are huge potential adversaries, China and Russia, that have a lot of resources. We have, in addition to the big adversaries of the future, they're not adversaries right now, and we hope they'll never be. But of course, in national security, deterrence is our best defense. And when you're looking at a China and a Russia, we need a united voice among democracies, people who represent the democratic forms of government. And it is essential, and I don't want to lessen the importance of terrorism as another area of the current threats, because the Western alliance is also important there. In a sense of what's really, really important, it is that NATO is that alliance of 30 democracies, and we must be together, and we must be strong together. But it's more important that people know too, we have 40 partners. In addition to 30 allies, that we have pledged our security for the future. If one is attacked, we're all attacked. We also have 40 partners that are with us in Afghanistan, in our other missions, Kosovo as well, Iraq as well. And I think it is so important that we are able to speak with one voice to protect our way of life, because some of our adversaries want to wipe out democracy. They want to wipe out the right of people. And so I think NATO is as important as it's ever been. When we were formed 70 years ago, it was to keep Russia out and make sure that the Western Europeans were able to stay free. And it has evolved into something that I think is even more important for both the short-term future and the long-term.
Part of that evolution in terms of what NATO is going to be looking to in the future, you already referenced in the threats of Russian aggression and China's rise. This summer, for the first time in 3 years, we're going to see a full summit in June in Brussels with all the heads of state coming together. And one of the things that they've talked about is updating the strategic concept. And for listeners who aren't familiar with this is a document that sort of guides NATO's military and political vision for the future. The last time this was rewritten was in 2010, and the world looked very different. Both the military that Russia had, as well as Russia's behavior, looked very different. So I'm curious, as we go into this summit, do you think NATO, as it stands today, is ready to counter the threats that Russia poses to not only the United States, but to the alliance more broadly?
Well, that's a really good question, because this is something where we are leading and pushing our allies. And let me say that our European allies mainly expect us to lead and expect us to push. And they want this because they know that none of them have the strength to really push. America's strength is that we assess a risk and then we deter against it. The Europeans are more influenced by economic gain. They look at China, even Russia, as being economic partners. And we are much more independent. And we say, you can't let economics run security. Security is required for economics. So put security first, and then you will have the economics. That's what NATO has done for 70 years. The Eastern Europeans that have come into NATO are part of the growth of security that allows them to have foreign investment and trade that give their people jobs and give them economics. So you have to put security first, which America does. We have to push the Europeans constantly to make sure that they see that and that they stand with us. And we're doing that. If there is one thing that I would say our NATO allies understand, it is that we have to have America in and America leading. And that is what pushes the beginning now. As you mentioned, there's going to be a summit in June. That a summit means our leaders, our presidents of countries, and also in some places, whoever is the head of the country, they're coming together, speaking for their countries, and setting a new strategic concept, which is not just going to be Russia. It's going to be looking to China, looking for the behavior, looking for ways to show that we can meet any test that might be thrown up by a very smart, strategic, methodical, patient China. And that's not going to deter us from the present, which is terrorism, which wasn't even on the radar 10 years ago when we had a strategic concept. The strategic concept was Russia. Deter against Russia, which I think we have effectively done. As you know, Jim, NATO forces have moved into Western European countries, the Baltics, plus Poland and the Czech Republic, Romania. We have NATO forces now as a deterrent, not to be aggressive, but to be defensive. And that was part of the strategic concept 10 years ago. Today, we are looking for more partners. We're looking for Asia partners. We are having much more contact with and strong relationship building with India, Australia, New Zealand, Korea, South Korea, of course, Japan. That's now being encompassed in NATO. And let me finish by saying that in this strategic concept, I believe that there will be an effort to make NATO the convener of all like-minded countries, which would be democracies, but also Middle Eastern countries that want to be our partners. We have Middle Eastern partners already. They don't have the kind of democracies that we have. They have more monarchies of a sort in some cases, but they want freedom and they want to not be dominated by any other country. So we have partners there. And then we have the Asia partners as well as we are even reaching into South America now. We have Colombia as a partner. Other South American countries are looking at partnerships with NATO. They want to learn about cybersecurity, about hybrid, and they are now seeing that global stability is going to affect every part of the world as we see potential adversaries that don't want freedom for people.
Can I chime in? I want to reinforce a really important point you made at the outset, which is that, because I want to make sure our listeners get that, you stressed how America's allies and partners expect America to lead and expect some pressure from us. And again, sometimes there's a notion afoot among Americans skeptical of our alliances that, the world resents American leadership, it doesn't want it. And yeah, sometimes there will be some resentments, but what our allies and partners really don't want is America to be absent. It's America to not be showing leadership. And that leadership can sometimes help our allied leaders kind of give them some of the political incentives and alignments they need to bring their publics along too. And those of us who've worked with allies have seen this a lot. But that was I thought a really important point. I just want to make sure that did not get missed.
I'm really glad that you did emphasize that, because time after time, allies would come to me and say, you need to keep pushing. We understand we need to do more. And in fact, because we have pushed so much, and I have said this 1,000 times to my allies, every president with whom I have served, starting with Bill Clinton, and then George Bush, Obama, Trump, and now Biden, every one of them has said Europe needs to do more for their own security. And they are. And they're stepping up, and they're really proud when they say we are meeting the 2%. Mm-hmm. And so every Democrat and Republican president has said in our time, Europe needs to do more, and we're going to be there with you. We're there as an alliance, and never has it been more clear than as this whole China thing has come up, that they've begun to see that we started their thinking in this process, but they're now really coming along. And I think you'll see in the summit in June a very strong relook and recommitting to our unified strategy to deter risks for all of us. We are the security umbrella for our Western way of life.
Yeah, I think that is one thing I really noticed at the working level, how important American leadership is, because there were so many times where we were wrestling with an issue, and whether it was my, British counterpart or German or Turkish or whoever it was, they'd come up and say, so what is the U.S. position? And if we didn't have an answer, they didn't have a position either, because they would not commit to what their position would be until they understood what position the U.S. was going to take and where we were going to try to shape.
I'll tell you an anecdote. When I first got there early on, I generally would speak first when we had an issue. And, I would put in that I would speak, but then they would come directly to me. And so I thought, I don't want to look like the Bigfoot here, so I'm going to let others speak. And one time I decided that it wasn't an issue that I needed to weigh in on. It wasn't something where we had a major position. And so I didn't speak at all. Well, our allies came up and said, so are you not for this? So why didn't you speak? So where are you? And I said, well, I just thought it would be good to hear from other people. I just didn't want to, feel like I was dominating everything. But they do want us to lead. And, I still was careful in trying not to ever throw my weight around. But they want to know, what are we going to do? What do we think? What can we do? And then they know that we're going to have the right might behind what we say. That if it's like what we're seeing right now in Afghanistan. We're the enablers. If we leave, they're going to leave. And they can't stay without us. And so that's just one example of just right now. And it's important that we have clear and transparent goals. And we have been doing that. Looking at the behavior of China. The Belt and Road Initiative was a real eye-opener for the Europeans. And we said, look, this is now serious. The assets and the infrastructure that is being accumulated by China, and then China is starting to put heavy pressure on people that don't do as they have wished they would do. And they're retaliating. So people are seeing it, especially with what they're doing with Australia right now. So I think we have led, and now we're going to start seeing a unity that is more clear.
Now, to follow up on that point, on the unity question, I think I'm optimistic and hopeful that we'll see that. But there are also some concerning trends as well. You see some potential democratic backsliding in places like Turkey and increasingly in Hungary. You see this ambitious agenda that we've talked about, where NATO spans, part of North America, almost all of North America, and Western and parts of Eastern Europe. We're talking about partners in South Asia and the Pacific. Can NATO maintain that unity, and what are the keys to keeping all those allies with so many different interests on board?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question, because you do see some of that. And we have tried to say, keep focused on the big umbrella, even though we don't like some of the things that are being done, particularly with Turkey buying the S-400, having a Russian missile defense system in NATO is breathtakingly horrible for NATO. Yeah. And we are pushing hard, but we don't want to push Turkey further into Russia's arena, because our view is that more and more, as people see what Russia is doing, that the people of Turkey will also want to be with the Western Alliance. Turkey's been a great ally at NATO until the last few years, when all of a sudden a Russian missile defense system has really been one of the hardest issues that we've had to face. But we're trying to see it through. We're trying to keep pushing. So far, it hasn't been turned on. That's going to be the key. And I think that keeping people together when it's really, really hard is the challenge that we've had over 70 years. and we keep working. Patience, but also prodding is so important. And I think reaching out to Asia now as part of our umbrella, as we're seeing China really doing terrible things in Hong Kong, on the northern border of India, the South China Seas.
Genocide against the Uyghurs.
Yes. And even what they're doing on the shores of Japan.
Yeah.
They're being very provocative. And so I think as we are working through these things, we are showing patience but resolve. And yes, there are things, Jim, that are troubling. They're troubling even in Western Europe. Sometimes some of our allies don't want America into defense procurement, like the EU. And so we're trying to work through that because in the end, it is going to depend on our unity with our Western allies. NATO must stay strong. We must be the nucleus of all of the partners that will be necessary to have a united position regarding China. What Australia is doing right now is so courageous. We need to stand with Australia. We need to say to China, come into the rules-based order. That's what Australia is trying to do. And this sort of petty retaliation that China is doing against Australia, we need to stand with Australia and say, they're right. You need to work for free and fair trade. You need to work for having relations that go both ways. And they're retaliating against Australia just for saying we should have an investigation into how COVID started. And they consider that to be offensive. Well, you know what? It's for all of our interest that we know how COVID was started so we can stop it or anything like it or any derivative of it as one unit.
Yeah, one place where I think we've clearly seen that unity, both with NATO allies and partners, is in Afghanistan. And we've seen Australia, who you've talked about the importance of standing with them, stand by us in Afghanistan. As our listeners probably know, the only time that NATO has invoked Article 5 is immediately after the attacks on the United States on September 11th. And our allies and partners have stuck with us for almost 2 decades in Afghanistan.
Yes, and Jim, don't forget, a lot of Americans don't realize we're in Afghanistan because NATO declared Article 5 on behalf of the United States. That's lost on people. We're not over there trying to build a country. We are over there trying to knock out terrorism that can be exported to us or any of our allies because of what happened on 9/11. And so our allies have stuck with us. We have 70 participants in Afghanistan, 40 plus 30. And it has been so important to hold back the fomenting of terrorism there that we saw resulting in the 9/11 attacks in 2001. So we've got to really make sure that we keep our allies together. And I'm very concerned about Afghanistan right now and what the effects are going to be of our leaving and NATO leaving with us.
And if I can just, again, chime in on that, in a lot of the debates about are other NATO members contributing enough to their defense budgets, and that's a big issue. But as I've reminded audiences before, over 1,000 non-American NATO soldiers have given their lives in Afghanistan. And that is also obviously the most solemn sacrifice or burden sharing that an ally can give, because it wasn't their countries that were attacked on 9/11, it was ours. Over 1,000 of their soldiers have died in combat there.
Very good point. And of course, right now, whereas America has between 2,500 and 3,000 troops, we have 6,500 to 7,500 NATO allies there with us. We have their support, and they have been faithful, as you said, Jim, for 20 years. And I'm concerned about our leaving completely, that we won't have the capability to keep a lid on the terrorism that we have seen just this last weekend, the horrific attack on the girls' school.
Oh, the Hazaris. Yeah. It's awful.
And it's just, it looks like what ISIS is doing, and the Taliban is standing back and letting them do it, is going after the educated youth, the girls and the boys. Attacking the previous horrendous attack was on the young women and men that were taking the big national exam, which is their exam to get into the higher education. It's the equivalent of our SAT, and it's such an honor for them to be able to take that exam and then be able to study abroad and study in Afghanistan. And they wiped out 20 or 30 of those young students that were the best and brightest. And the girls' school that they attacked just this last weekend, the education of girls, it's just horrific that what we're doing is leaving that, because, my personal view is that part of our national security is having those educated young people be able to take control in Afghanistan eventually, because they've seen what freedom can be.
The Biden administration has yet to name your successor, but many people expect they could do so in the coming days or weeks. What advice would you give to the next occupant of Truman Hall as they get ready to go into the job of U.S. Ambassador to NATO?
Yes, it is a wonderful position. And the advice that I would give is just to trust our allies, because they want us to lead, and they appreciate so much the team, that we're almost an extended family of the 30 ambassadors that represent our countries. And I think that the constant reassurance which I gave, which all our secretaries of defense, our secretaries of state gave during all of our tenure, is that America is here. We are here with you for our mutual defense. It is in all of our interests that we work together. And I think that the next ambassador will be like the previous ones that have all said the same thing. All of the presidents with whom I served, the ambassadors, the senators, everyone on a bipartisan basis in America that's in the political bodies is pro-NATO, because the understanding of our common Western civilization, our common values, and our ability to export those common values is essential as an alliance. America speaking alone does not have the power of America speaking with 30 and 70 voices of allies and partners saying this is a rules-based order. This is how we have free and fair trade, how we give our citizens the economics and the job opportunities. We do it with a strong security. The Europeans have seen that evolve after World War II, which was the purpose of creating NATO, and we've got to stay in the forefront of leading this very important Western alliance. That would be my take, and I know that whoever is appointed will believe that too.
Great advice, great words to end on. So thank you very much, Ambassador Hutchison, Dr. Golby.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Horns of a Dilemma, and please don't forget to visit our website at tnsr.org.